All right, welcome to Unit 14, Creative Careers. We're going to try something a little different as far as the video is concerned. Trying a new method, see if it works. Let me know what you guys think. So, creative careers, describing steps in a process, discuss jobs in entertainment and in the media. So we have here the snapshot, which is milestones in contemporary cinematography. So the first to, in something, okay? So we have the first movie with a Dolby Digital sound was Batman Returns in 1992. So it's been a while. It's been close to 30 years. The first computer animated feature film was Toy Story in 1995, but there's been several since. World of Warcraft was CGI, and the Final Fantasy was like the first live action movie that was supposed to be all CGI. The first major movie shot entirely in digital video was Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones in 2002. The first computer animated motion captured film was the Polar Express. So motion captures when they put these cameras they used to put a camera, but they put this suit with little pins on you and they record you, and then they put the CGI on top of that. For the Polar Express, let's take a look here. This is actually a video with Andy Serkis, which we're going to get to in a second because it has to do with motion capture. But this is the Polar Express. So the main actor here was Tom Hanks. He was the big name. So a few of you might recognize the Polar Express. Look at the face of the CGI. It looks realistic, but it's still animated. But there's one here with Tom Hanks. So this is Tom Hanks here, and he was motion captured. That's why the character looks so much like him. So this is what he looks like being animated through motion capture. And this is what he looks like animated after being captured. That's why it looks so much like Tom Hanks. Another one was A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey. So everyone knows A Christmas Carol, but this is the one with Jim Carrey. And look at the advancement into CGI just from the Polar Express to A Christmas Carol, which was a few years later. Look at the detail on that face. They put it on Jim Carrey and then exaggerated his features just a little bit. And if we go to Andy Serkis again over here, I'm actually going to play it for a little bit so you guys can see him in the suit. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to play the whole thing through, even though it's only 5 minutes. I'm going to link it. I'm going to link it so you guys can watch it of your own accord. But just watch the suit that he wears.
Wolf of the Planet of the Apes is probably the most evolved performance capture that is seen to date. But when I think back to Lord of the Rings and where it all started, there's been such a huge journey in terms of the evolution of the technology, the hardware, the cameras, the software, everything that goes into transforming an actor's performance into an avatar character. Motion capture came out of the medical industry, but then it was used in early video games. So that would be by using a suit with retro-reflective markers placed at joints in the body, the information of which is then piped into a computer that provides then an electronic skeleton, which is then added to an animated rig. So the process of shooting on Lord of the Rings was to go on set and work with the other actors on location. Then we'd have to do a second pass with the camera. I would stand off to the side and then they would react to a ball on a stick and they would then capture their performances. Then I would go back to a motion capture studio where I'd climb into the motion capture suit. They would play back the scenes that I've been working on and I would be able to see on the screen in real time a representation.
See, so that's the suit that he uses to be able to have it motion captured. So like I said, I'm going to link the rest of the video so you guys can watch it at your own pace. You know, feel free if you guys want to do a little 1 hour about motion capture and stuff like that. And this is not the only time we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, because if we keep going down the list, we'll bump into one of these. So like the first movie to be released simultaneously in theaters, on DVD, and on the internet is EMR. Never heard of this movie. Film directed by a woman to win an Oscar for Best Picture was The Hurt Locker. It's a really good war movie. Never saw it, but it got a lot of accolades. Obviously, it won the Oscar, but it was also it was beloved by a lot of people. First full-length feature film shot on a phone was Olive. Never heard of this movie either. And first major movie filmed at 48 frames per second instead of the standard 24 frames per second was The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. So look at this. 2012, and then go back here. First major movie shot entirely on digital video. 2002. The reason The Hobbit was able to be shot in 48 frames per second, well, not the only reason, but the main reason, is the technology used to film it. Film is exactly that. It is film. It's a reel, and it's expensive, and it uses chemicals. So these are film reels, and they've been the standard for hundreds of years. For over 100 years, this has been the film standard. They're expensive, and that's why it got standardized at 24 frames per second. Silent movies are at a much slower frame rate, which is why they look jumpy. It looks like they're all in stop motion almost, because they're smaller frame rates. So it looks like a jumpy animation like Charles Chaplin. So it got standardized in 24. TV, like Friends, Seinfeld, and just TV shows in general, are filmed at 30 rates per second. That's the standard for TV. But remember, TV shows are at most 45 minutes long. Usually they're 20 minutes long. They've been standardized into half-hour and hour units with commercials peppered in. But the show itself is like 20 minutes, 22 minutes, or 45 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes, and the rest of the time is filled in with commercials. So the reason why they can go for a higher frame rate. Movies, though, you're sitting there for those 2 hours or longer. It's at least an hour and a half for a feature-length film, or above 2 hours. So this limited that, the frames per second, because it was expensive. With digital video, it's just however big your hardware is, your hard drive. How many gigabytes is your computer? How much video can you fit in it? So there's no limit. It brought the cost down of filming a movie, at least in terms of the film reels. So with it being digital, from the first movie shot entirely in digital video to the first movie shot in 48 frames per second, it's been 10 years. The leaps in technology and the cost of stuff drops like a brick. So it's one of the many reasons. I'm going to link an article by Forbes that kind of deals with that, right? And speaking of silent movies, the first talkie was a movie called The Jazz Singer. Let me see if I actually have a link to that. Because I do have a link to a few others. Well, let's see, the Polar Express. We can get rid of this one. A Christmas Carol. I may not have it. Here we go. The Jazz Singer from 1927 was the first film with voice sound. Silent film is kind of an incorrect name because they always had a soundtrack. They always had the piano, the famous piano soundtrack. So they had sound, they just couldn't match it to voices. This was the first one that did it. And there's a debate whether or not it was the first talkie, the actual talking film, because it has a musical number. So it's still a silent movie, but it has a musical number that really impressed people back in 1927. Very racist. As you can tell, it's supposed to be a black man. It's actually a white guy in blackface. This is the actual actor, and then he paints his face black. So now I wouldn't say it's a common practice, but it was definitely a practice back in the day. And yes, very racist. Very, very racist. But it's been preserved for historical purposes, kind of like our next movie, the very first blockbuster, A Birth of a Nation. A Birth of a Nation is based on an 1885 novel called The Klansman, which is why you might recognize these robes. Okay, it's about a knight of the KKK, of the Ku Klux Klan, that saves a white woman from the savage black man. And yes, I know what you're thinking, and yes, also very, very racist. But it's the first blockbuster. It broke records. People went to see it. It's over 3 hours long. It innovated a lot of film. It's the first in a lot of stuff. It's not only the first blockbuster, it's the first movie to innovate the long shot, the close-up, a lot of technical cinematography. Here's where it started. And guess what? It's up on YouTube. I'm also going to link it to the video if you guys want to watch it. It is 3 hours and 13 minutes long. I recommend you watch it for a lot of things. It's a silent movie, so as you can see here from the preview, it's got text boxes that you guys can read. So you're reading in English, and you're watching a piece of history. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but I recommend it. I really recommend it if you want to break it up into hour sessions, because it's brutal, and it starts really slow. I like it, not for the racism, obviously, but because it's a good movie. Technically speaking, cinematographically speaking, it is a good movie, and it's very well worth watching. And when we think of silent films, we usually think of Charles Chaplin, and we usually think of them as boring. They're actually a lot of fun. They're very, very good movies. I actually like silent films a lot, and they're a lot of fun. Even after all these years, almost 80 to 100 years later, they're still very, very good. This one's from 1915. And I want you to draw your attention here to the disclaimer. In no way I'm promoting or glorifying the KKK or the depiction of African Americans by the U.S. back in the day, right? But I'll go ahead and link it for you guys as well. On a less racist note, another very important movie in firsts was Rollerball. Rollerball is from 1975. It was the first movie to credit stuntmen, extras. The only real actor, so to speak, or the big name is James Caan. James Caan is the one here in Rollerball. He was also in The Godfather as Sonny, as the lawyer of the family. But notice how he's the only one that gets credited here, James Caan, right? So he gets main billing. But it's the first movie that credits its extras. It's a movie about a game, Rollerball. It's a mixture of roller derby, football, hockey, right? Ultra violent. and it's a future society. It says in the not so distant future, right? If you can read the poster there, where this game has replaced war. There's no more wars. There's world peace, but people are still violent. So they go to these games to vent. There's no libraries. All knowledge is in a central computer. So his character, James Caan's character, Jonathan E., he wants to know where knowledge is. How do you get knowledge if there's no more books? Where's knowledge kept? So he's on this quest. At the same time, he's being told to retire because he's the superstar of this game. Think your Tom Brady's, your Tiger Woods, um, Ronaldo's, Messi's. So he's that of Rollerball. He's the super mega star of it. And they want him to retire because no player is above the game. The game is supposed to teach people that no individual is above society. And he's breaking that rule by being good, by being the best at the game. He becomes a hero. So they keep changing the rules to force him to retire, making it more and more violent, taking away penalties and stuff like that. And not to spoil it, but, well, he's the hero. He's the hero of this dystopian future. So it's a movie very, very well worth watching. I'll show you a clip of it in a future video. We're definitely coming back to this. But it's the first movie to credit extras or stuntmen. So from this list, have you seen any of these movies and did you enjoy them? Right? For example, Batman Returns. When I was a kid, 1992, I was 8 years old. I can tell you right now, I did not like it. I liked the first Batman movie. It was dark enough. It was cool enough. It was interesting. But this one took a really dark turn. It was not liked at the time. In hindsight, it's gotten much better reviews than it did when it opened. But it was not what people expected at the time. I mean, I can watch it now, but I still have those negative feelings from when I watched it the first time, being a young kid. Right? Toy Story, loved it. Attack of the Clones, hated it. I don't really like the prequels. They're not as bad as people make them out to be. I've seen them again since they came out. Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Return of the Sith, no, Revenge of the Sith. I'm sorry, Episode 3. I've watched them again because they've been up on Netflix for a while before Disney takes them down because they're going to be on Disney Plus. They're not as bad as I remember, um, but they're still pretty bad. They're still pretty bad. But yeah, some of these, like I said, I didn't even watch them. So how about you guys? What's the most popular movie playing right now? I have no idea. We're in quarantine. I don't know if you guys are aware. And are you planning on seeing them? For example, right now, well, Netflix. Netflix has a new feature called the Top 10. So there's this movie right now with Chris Hemsworth, The Extraction, where I guess they have to save someone's daughter from a Mexican drug cartel. That one's pretty popular right now. So maybe that's the way we can gauge it. We can't go to the theaters, but we can stream online. Netflix has their top 10 feature. Which one is the most popular one, and do you plan on seeing it, or have you already seen it? So go ahead and answer these questions. You're going to send them on the email. Are there any movies? Are there many movies made in your country? Name a few of your favorites. And well, Mexico's not known for its film industry. The United States is by and large the film giant. Hollywood is the one that produces the most movies. But the Asian market isn't far behind. Except, if you're gonna watch a Korean movie, or a Chinese movie or Japanese movie, they're better known for their horror movies, right? Like The Grudge. Oh my God, that movie still scares the hell out of me. Um, Here they called it something else. I think they called it La Maldición or something like that. But The Grudge, when it came out, it really, really scared me. See, this one with the girl that just goes on the steps. Oh my God, it was spooky, right? And I think they've remade it or they've done something to it, but this is the original one. I have no idea what this poster is. I guess they're redoing it, but the first one in 2004 was really, really scary. So with Sarah Michelle Gellar. So Asian cinema gained international notoriety for its horror movies, but Japan is known for its anime, and Korea now is known for its romantic comedies. There's a bunch of Korean romantic comedies on Netflix. So, what is Mexican cinema known for? And a lot of it has to do with our classic cinema from the 40s and 50s with Pedro Infante, or even before that with the revolution movies, the movies about the revolution, and where all these iconic um, ideas of what Mexico is. El guerrillero, la Adelita, and these iconic songs. Si Adelita se fuera con otro, all of these came out of movies like Vamos con Pancho Villa, um, Mexico, the escritor, I forget what it is, but it's one from like the 30s. It's a movie from the 30s based on a book by an American journalist, an American war journalist that came down to see what's going on with the revolution in Mexico and then went back to the United States. It's actually a really, really good movie. I'll see if I can find it and link it for you guys. But that's kind of where it comes from. But we're known for those or Cantinflas. You know, speaking of movies, you know, Mario Moreno Cantinflas. Those are the other ones that we're known for. He started in the 60s. He started well before that with the carpas, circus acts. What we know now as stand-up comedians, that's what he did back in the circus. And he translated that humor to film in the 60s. He had a very, very long movie career. But he started in the carpas. Right? So this is what Mexico is known for. But in the 90s, it kind of changed with Sexo, Pudor y Lágrimas. Sexo, Pudor y Lágrimas. This was of like the renaissance of Mexican cinema. Cilantro y Perejil, which is, I think it was about a marriage, right? With one of the bichirs. Cilantro y Perejil. Todo el Poder. All of these Mexican movies from about 25, 30 years ago, they really, really changed the face of Mexican cinema. And one of my favorites is La Ley de Herodes. But there's many, many, many more. If you guys haven't heard of these, I highly recommend you look them up. They're not in English, obviously, but you should watch them because it's our Mexican, it's our film industry. It's the Mexican film industry, and we do have a duty in a way to support that and really help it out. And it's gotten better. It's gotten a lot better. I mean, if you watch some movies from the 80s, oh my God, it's a low point in Mexican cinema, the 70s and 80s. Oh, good God. You know, and it's not just El Santo contra las Momias, and it's not just Pedro Infante and Jorge Negrete or anything like that, or Cantinflas. We have more, right? So what movies do you like from our country, from Mexican cinema? You know, which are your favorites? Sad to say, outside of the Ley de Herodes, my favorites are the Cantinflas movies and some of the Pedro Infante movies. So how about you guys? Which ones do you have? But let's move it along to the conversation, to our audio here before the grammar point. which is I have more control. Let me go ahead and actually play you the audio.
Unit 14, Creative Careers. Page 92, Exercise 2, Conversation. I have more control. Part A. Listen and practice.
Thanks for coming to the film festival. Directing this film was amazing, and I'm happy to answer your questions about it.
Yes, hi. What is it like to direct an animated movie? Is it different from live action?
Well, for one thing, I have a lot more control. There are no actors to argue with me.
I guess not. But how do you direct cartoon characters?
Well, after a screenplay is chosen, many drawings of the characters are presented to me.
And you get to choose which ones to use?
Even better, I can change them if I want. The characters have to be drawn just right, like I see them in my mind.
So you decide a lot about the characters early on.
Definitely. By the time the voice actors are picked, the characters feel like old friends.
So it's funny how she says that with an animated movie, she has more control, or she feels like she's in more control. But in reality, that's no longer the case. It might have been the case at some point in animation, but Aladdin changed all of that. You're all familiar with Disney's Aladdin, right? Let's see if we get the original animated one or the current live action. But this one changed animation forever. Because see this guy right here? Well, that's the genie. He's better seen right here. Notice anything with the animation? He was made to look like Robin Williams. Robin Williams voiced the genie in the first Aladdin movie. Hank Azaria, who works with the Simpsons, he does voices for the Simpsons. He did the genie in Return of Jafar because Robin Williams got in a fight with Disney. He said, "I will do the voice of Genie only if you do not use my name in the marketing." And they were like, "Sure, no problem." So he does it, and Disney used him. So you say, like, featuring Robin Williams as the genie. And he was so upset. He was really, really unhappy with it. Lindsay Ellis, one of my favorite YouTubers, does a great piece on this. I will link her video on how Aladdin changed animation for everyone. And now, if there's a famous voice lent to the movie, they get top billing. Like, for example, Toy Story, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen in Toy Story. Keanu Reeves was in Toy Story 4 as that Canadian Daredevil, right? That was a big deal. So now getting famous actors to do voices on animation is a big deal. And now it depends on the movie that you do. But at least for the American market, not so much for the Japanese animes. For like the Studio Ghibli ones, it's not that big of a deal who does the voice. It's the studio. But for Disney, it's not just that it's a Disney movie, it's they got so-and-so to do the voice acting. For example, if we go really quickly here, let's get rid of Andy Serkis for 2 seconds. This is kind of like what the voice sessions look like. See, so here we go. Here's a really short one. Let's go ahead and play it.
Okay, first off, we all knew Operation Playtime was a long shot.
Yeah, more like a misfire.
But we've always said this job isn't about getting played with. It's about being there for Andy. We could get back to Andy's, but we gotta move fast. We'll hide under the seats till we get back home. Get complicated. Where's Potato Head? I have a kid. You have a kid, Andy. And if he wants us at college or in the attic, well, our job is to be there for him. Now, I'm going home. Anyone who wants to join me is welcome. Come on, Buzz. Buzz?
Our mission with Andy's complete, Woody.
What?
And what's important now is we stay together.
We wouldn't even be together if it weren't for Andy. Look under your boot, Buzz. You too, Jesse. Whose name is written there?
So what's really interesting about this video is that you can tell Tim Allen and Tom Hanks are actually having their voices recorded together. That's actually kind of rare. Normally, it's just one actor doing their lines and then they put them all together. And if you notice that one guy in front, that's kind of what they do. They have a one person reading some lines so they can play off of that, but it's normally not the other talent. It's normally not the other big name actor, right? So now they have big name actors doing voices for these cartoons or animated films, I should say. And it's very, very, very different. And it's all been after Aladdin. Yeah, so I mean, you still get people arguing with you and fighting with you, and a lot of times everything's improvised. So we'll get more to the animation process later on. Let's see what else she has to say.
Page 92. Exercise 2. Part B. Listen to the rest of the conversation. Who helps Clara choose the voice actors?
I see there's another question. You, in the red shirt, please.
Yes, I'm curious. Do you, as the director, get to choose the actors for the voices?
I do, but for big-budget animated movies, I often get help from a casting director.
Can I ask why that is?
A casting director can help you get big names, and when popular stars are used, it can bring a wider audience to an animated film, which, of course, means more money can be made.
Is it pretty hard to get movie stars? Wouldn't they rather be working on live-action movies?
Actually, no. You'd be surprised. Some big names in Hollywood want to work on animated films because they want to do a movie their kids will love, and I love that.
That's very true. You guys are familiar with Martin Scorsese. He's the one that directed The Irishman, which was out on Netflix and was up for Oscars, right? He did Goodfellas, and he did The Departed. So he's done a lot of very graphic, his movies are known for being very graphic, very violent. He did The Last Temptation of Christ. So very controversial films, very heavy graphic films. Well, he did Hugo. He did Hugo. And he said he did it because he wanted to make a movie that his grandkids could watch. So Martin Scorsese, Hugo. So he did this little gem about a little robot that works with clocks. So this is Martin Scorsese here. He's the director. So he did this little movie so his grandkids could watch it, right? But he's not normally known for this type of movie. So they said that that's why a lot of them like to do the animated movies. And it's true. Some of them do that. But it's what we were talking about. But moving on to the grammar point. Here's where it gets interesting. So here's the process that we're looking at. The passive voice to describe a process is are in the past participle, or with a modal plus be plus part participle. So with is and are, a screenplay is chosen, many drawings are presented. So let's do a little quick review here. We're talking about the passive, which means we have active. The active voice, we know it as having your subject and what they do. So for example, Da Vinci, let's pretend for this exercise that these people are alive, because in the book we have it in present tense, not in past. So to continue with that, Da Vinci paints. Well, how do they have it here? Is chosen. So all right, here we go. I'm actually going to use the past tense. I'm sorry. Da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet. Right? So this is active voice. Passive, you get your direct object, okay, and you put it up front. The Mona Lisa was painted by Da Vinci. Romeo and Juliet was written by Shakespeare. Okay. So here we have the active. Da Vinci painted, Shakespeare wrote. In the passive, you grab what they painted or wrote and put it on the front. Your direct object goes here, your subject goes over here. The Mona Lisa was painted by, so this is basic passive, right? What they're doing here is describing a process, step one, step two, okay? And in the present tense, is for singular, a screenplay is chosen. Many drawings, plural, are presented. Okay. Instead of saying the director chooses. So in active form, the director chooses a screenplay. In the process, a screenplay is chosen. Okay. And you can say by who? By the director. Maybe. We don't know that. We don't know who did the choosing. Okay. When as many drawings are presented, the artists present many drawings. Many drawings are presented by the artists. Okay. So active, passive. And then they use the modals. Modal plus be plus the past participle. The characters have to be drawn. The drawings might be changed. So a quick review on the modals. It's right here. There's a little chart that I want you guys to watch. So remember modals: should, would, could, can. Modals of obligation, modals of ability. So here, this website has some, I'll go ahead and link it into the video as well, so you guys can review modals in general. But look at this chart right here. The type you have of ability, of permission, of advice, of obligation, of possibility, right? Can, could, may, should, must, have to. Notice to is always with have. Okay? Might, may, and could. So if we look at the sentence that they give us, drawings might be changed, characters have to be drawn. You can change this to whatever. Should be changed. Could be changed. Can be changed. The modal doesn't matter. Okay? Let's actually do that. So let's see what they say, the drawings. Drawings might be changed, right? Extend it a little bit. Okay. Well, guess what? The drawings could be. The drawings can be. Should be. The drawings must be. And then changed. Okay. So your modal is this one right here. Could, can, should, must, might, plus be, and then the verb in past participle. Changed. Go back to the book real quick. Okay. So no matter what modal you use, you're always going to have be and then the past participle of what they're going to be, how they're going to change. Okay. And that's how you're going to work exercise A. So let's go to that real quick. To exercise A. It says, the sentence below describes how an animated movie is made. First, complete the sentences using the passive. Then compare with a partner. Don't worry about that. But use it using the passive. So first, storyboards. Draw. So this verb is going to be in the past participle. Storyboards is plural. So it should look something like this. I'm going to do the first one for you guys. The rest you're on your own. It should look like that. First, storyboards are drawn by story artists. For some movies, over 200,000 storyboards might. There's your modal. He already gave you your modal. What are you going to do next? Okay. So I'm going to go over this with you guys on our 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock sessions. All right. So I want us to go over this so you guys have the grammar fairly well done, because remember, we have a quiz on Thursday. So I want you guys to be ready for this. Okay. And here's where I'm going to stop the video. I hope you guys kind of like the new format. Let me know whether on the comments of the video itself or on the Facebook comments. Let me know what you guys think. One of the things that I like about this new thing is there's no watermarks, and I can share clips with you guys. So let me know what you think of the new format. I'm probably gonna do the next video this way as well. But for Unit 15, let me know to see if I go back to what I was doing or if I stick with this. But see you for Unit 14, Part 2.